Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another Unitrends webinar. My name is Max Francisco, and I'm a customer marketing manager here at Unitrends. Today's webinar about resources to help IT manage a remote workforce. This is our agenda for today. I'll introduce you to the speakers, and we're going to go through challenges that a remote workforce has today. Some key tactics on IT management and how to deal with, when everybody's working remotely from their houses. We're going to have a demo of our VSA, and then we're going to have some time for some Q&A session. If you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to type them on the Q&A box, and I'll bring them up during the webinar, or we're going to tackle them towards the end. So today's webinar is presented by Mark Winter, our Kaseya VP of Sales, Ronald Gordon, our Sales Engineer, and John Emmett, our Product Marketing Director. And having said that, we are ready to get started. So please, John, take it away.
All right, thanks, Max. Yeah, so I want to again thank everybody for joining us today. I know everybody is super busy in this time that we're all going through, and appreciate you joining us. And we're trying to keep this fairly tactical, and hopefully you learn some key tactics that you can take away and use right away. And I wanted to start off with a couple of examples here of organizations that have come to Kaseya recently to deal with the current crisis. And the first example is a school system here in the US with more than 5,600 students and about 380 professional staff members. And they came to us to say that they need to be able to manage off-network machines. And they said that they were in basically a crisis mode. The governor of their state had mandated that the districts come up with a plan in case the students have to be away from school for a long period of time. And of course, we're seeing that play out, right? Many schools have been closed for over a month or more and continue to be closed for the foreseeable future. And so they came to us to see if we could help them manage these remote staff members. And the second example is a managed service provider in South Africa that's working in the government sector. And again, they came to Kaseya a couple of weeks back to say that their customers need remote support. And that's because of the lockdown situation in South Africa. So it's a global problem where many organizations are now facing work from home staff members that traditionally were in an office environment. And now how can they manage that remote work environment?
Yes, John, this is Ron. We're seeing this more and more because even with this remote environment now having to have end users working in a remote environment, there's still that security management that's needed, that monitoring, policy management, things of that nature for the IT infrastructure, whether it's directly in the office or remote. So this problem is growing bigger and bigger.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks, Ron. Let's go on to the next. So as we noticed with both these organizations and many others that we're talking to lately, the key challenge that they are dealing with is managing off-network devices. And in this case, we're primarily focused on corporate-owned devices, so your laptops and so forth that employees have that were provided by the company in most cases. And so, in a typical environment shown here in the diagram, you have your main office location with your corporate local area network. You may have other branch locations, corporate LANs. And now, of course, we have many users that are working remotely. So they're shown as these remote worker boxes. They're not on the corporate LAN. They are just connected via the internet. And we need to be able to access those devices, manage those devices, troubleshoot them if an issue comes up, make sure that they're secure. So that's what we're dealing with on the corporate side. And then if we go to the next slide, I'll let Mark jump in and talk a little bit about the personal device side of this.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, John. Let's All right, is my screen showing correctly? I'll assume it is. So
We've got it was showing, but now we lost your slide.
You just need to share your screen.
Yeah, I did a moment ago.
It was working and then it went away.
And now?
Now we've got you back.
Fantastic. All right, sorry about that, folks. And yeah, thanks for allowing me to participate. So another key challenge, as John was saying, is managing personal devices for remote workers because, you know, we work with both direct small to mid-sized businesses as well as managed service providers that, you know, work with SMBs. And it's not always the case that, you know, the work from home people today had laptops and other corporate machines that they could take home, and not every SMB could afford to, you know, provide those. So what we're finding is that a lot of internal IT are having to spend time setting up personal devices, actually, you know, home computers for access to the network. And these provide a lot of risk, right? I mean, you know, we're stressed out workers these days, and there's so much phishing and other information going on that's really preying on folks with COVID-19, and people are, you know, clicking on the wrong stuff. A lot of times we're seeing, you know, home machines that are older operating systems, right? Windows 7, even XP. You know, I even had to check my wife's machine to make sure that it was up to date with Windows 10, and I had to fix that for her. You know, these systems aren't being managed by your remote management platform, right? So they're missing critical patches. They don't have centralized antivirus. We don't really know, as you know, internal IT folks, what antivirus is running on those machines. There could be open ports and applications that are providing vulnerabilities that, as the IT team, we would never allow onto our corporate network. Yet that's what we're being forced to do, or we're forced to do. You know, even worse, we're finding that home machines don't have passwords, don't have screen lockout with passwords. You know, do you really want the home worker to walk away to go to the bathroom or to fix lunch, the VPNs up, and you know, the teenager can get to the machine and all of a sudden they're on the corporate VPN. So a ton of problems that these home machines provide as we're having to enable home workers onto our networks. Let's talk about you know, how we can see what's going on there. One solution is Network Detective, and this is available from Kaseya. And in fact, it's the team that I'm associated with. Network Detective is all about automating IT assessments, which you can use to document what's going on, not only on your corporate network, but, you know, here we're focused on the work from home environment. And, you know, the solution here is detect what's going on these machines so we can support them better and maybe protect against any infections ahead of time. And with Network Detective, this is easy to do. I'm going to spend a moment or two talking about Network Detective in general in a couple of minutes. But here's what you get if you're using our work from home process. You're going to scan the home computers and generate 3 reports out of Network Detective. One would be the Consolidated Computer Security Report Card. As you can see here, there's a row for every computer that has been scanned, and it provides an overall letter grade, A through F. And, you know, across the top, each of these columns indicate, you know, how well that machine stands up to best practices for these key components. So, you know, we're looking at, is antivirus on and is it current? Is there anti-spyware on the machine? What's the status of the local firewall? Is it up to date in patching? Are there any insecure listening reports, failed logins, screens with lockout missing, system aging, support OS, and more? So this way, as IT people, we can have an at-a-glance report that says which machines, you know, meet our minimum standards. And your minimum standards might be A, or A and B are allowed on the network, and anything C and below requires remediation before you would allow it. Now, you know, here we are doing this webinar, you know, 4 and 5 weeks into this, and maybe you've already enabled home machines. If you have, I would strongly suggest it's still a good time to get ahead of this. We could be doing this for another 2, 3, 4 weeks or longer, and have some documentation on what machines pose a potential risk, and it's an at-a-glance for you. Excuse me. There's also an asset detail report. For every system scan, there'll be several pages of information, and this is going to tell you what you're supporting, right? So if you do need to provide support for a home PC for whatever reason, you'll need to know, what operating system, potentially the manufacturer, service tag, the speed of the processor if they're having application performance issues, how much drive space. So all of this is documented for you in a very consistent format for every machine. There's also a section on IP configuration. So if there are connectivity issues for a home machine, as you're trying to, either set up RDP sessions, Citrix sessions, VPN or whatever, you may need to know the gateway mask, what IP range they're on, in case there's any interference with the VPN tunnels that you're choosing. You also want to review endpoint security. So, while it's in the consolidated report card, we'll give you the details here and say what Windows updates are potentially missing on a machine-by-machine basis, so you know what needs to be fixed if you have to do any remediation for those home PCs. And we also provide a review of the applications that are installed on the machine. Here we see Mozilla, Screen Connect, Viper. Probably okay, but you might see applications that are running that could be applications you would never have on your network. And you might have to instruct a work-from-home employee that they need to uninstall that before you can provide VPN or other access to the network. Listening port review. Again, there could be something that's standing up listening ports. Maybe it's a web server or a game server. You wouldn't want to have those ports listening on that machine while still connected to the VPN. Not good practices. Could be a sign of problems. Finally, we have an overall Windows patch assurance report for your own documentation on what the patch level is on all these machines. And by the way, these don't have to just be home machines. These could be the corporate machines as well that you're scanning and documenting and keeping up to date with Network Detective. So in the work-from-home scenario, we've made it really easy for the IT people to roll this out. So in a smaller, if you're a company that maybe only has 10, 20 home users that are on home PCs, the handheld option, you would remote in, you do an RDP into the system, download and run our local data collector. That's easy to do. You'll grab the scan file, either email it to yourself or put it to secure storage. You'll then run a Network Detective application. This gets run from your computers, not from the home machine. The data is import. And then you're going to generate those 3 reports I just talked about, and of course analyze those reports to approve the home computer user and then enable access. Or in the case where they're already on the network, make sure that you've got the documentation that those are good. For companies that have, where the handheld option is not viable. So, maybe there's 50, 100 home workers on home PCs. What you would do is simply stand up a link on your corporate web page. We even have a portal page you could use if you wanted to. You're going to provide instructions for them to go to that page, click on, a link for either Windows, Mac, or Linux. For most people, it's going to be Windows or Mac. The data collection runs, and you'll tell them once it's done where to either email or move or push the scan file to that storage location. Then you're going to import the data just like you would in the other scenario, run the same reports, review those reports, set up any computers that are ready to go, or go back to users that have threats and get those fixed before they log in. So that's kind of the work from home scenario where we want to identify what's on those home machines and clean them up before they become problems in this work from home environment. But just a moment or two about just Network Detective in general. It's designed to automate IT and security assessments. We also have Exchange, SQL, and a few others. Our automated data collection will gather data from the network. It's not any business data. There's never business data collected. It's only metadata about the machines and what's on the network. And we automatically create reports delivered to you in DocX, XLS, and some PowerPoint as well. There's executive summaries that you can share with management, progress reports, network details, firewall risks and documentations, and more. And there are literally, in our key modules, our network and security, but again, Exchange and SQL Server, there are literally dozens, over 100 if you include some of the other modules, of different reports that highlight different information. And for internal IT, things like resulting set of policies by computer and by user are extremely valuable. The consolidated computer report card, share permissions by user as well as by share. There's so much valuable information that, even when we're beyond this work from home, you're going to find this extraordinarily easy to run and extremely useful, because there's also change reporting built in and so much more. So that's all I have. Let me go ahead and turn this back over to John.
Great, thanks, Mark. Let me share my screen here. Hopefully you're seeing my screen. And okay. So now we want to jump back to kind of focusing back on the corporate owned device side of things that we talked about briefly earlier, and look at some key tactics for managing those remote workers and remote endpoints. And the first thing that a lot of organizations have to do or have had to do is set up a VPN so that remote workers can securely access certain applications. Of course.
Hey, John.
Hello?
You want to just change the view that we have? We are seeing your PowerPoint and not the presentation itself.
Okay.
Just change that. Thanks.
I'm not actually sure how to do that. Let's see.
When you share the screen, you're going to be able to select both of your screens.
Let me just go back here. I'll go this way. Okay, we good now?
Perfect. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, as I was saying, a lot of organizations, of course, already have VPN set up, virtual private networks, to allow remote users to easily access and securely access certain applications. Of course, if you are using a SaaS applications, this isn't necessary, but I know for Kaseya, there are certain things where you do need the secure link. And so you want to be able to easily set up the virtual private network, and the endpoint management solution can help you do that. It can help you deploy and configure the VPN clients that are put out on the remote endpoints, and then actually monitor those endpoints and that client to make sure that it stays up. And if it, for whatever reason, should go down, then you could have a policy in place in the endpoint management tool to redeploy that client and make sure that it's up and running. So an endpoint management solution helps you to do all of these things to make sure that the secure connection is available for remote users that might require it.
And John, what's interesting is what you just mentioned here, we actually utilized internally at Kaseya when the whole COVID-19 situation broke out. We had a lot of our internal employees that had to work remotely, and due to that, they were needing to have VPN access. So we actually leveraged a pre-built scripts that we were able to deploy from the Kaseya VSA platform onto those end user systems, enabling it to automatically set up the VPN configuration for them without any needed intervention, manual intervention from themselves.
Yeah, exactly. That's great, Ron. Yeah, we had an agent procedure in our VSA solution that our internal IT team used to set that up and make sure that, again, it's easy to do and remote users have access to that VPN. Okay, so once we have the VPN set up, the next thing we want to be able to do is secure the endpoint. And again, because we have remote off-network endpoints that our remote users are working from, we want to make sure that we're using an endpoint management solution that can actually still deploy patches and updates to the software on those endpoints, even if they're not on the corporate network. And so VSA allows you to do that. You can, as long as you have an internet connection, you can connect to that device and do patching and updating of the software running on that machine.
And John, not only will the VSA allow you to perform that off-network patching, but you can also receive any notifications or alerts about any patching issues that occur for those systems that are working, or those workers that are working remotely. And then you can also produce extensive reporting about those systems being patched in a remote manner.
Right, and you want to be able to monitor the patch status. You want to be able to monitor the vulnerabilities that are potentially affecting the machines in your environment, as shown in this dashboard. And of course, just like the patching of the applications on the device, you need to be able to deploy your AV/AM clients to all those endpoints. Again, off-network devices, you have to be able to deploy and keep update to your antivirus, anti-malware solution on those remote endpoints. Next step is to be able to remote into those devices to manage them, to troubleshoot issues, work through problems that might crop up, even though your remote users are not, again, on your corporate network. So in VSA, we actually have two different mechanisms for doing this, for doing remote management. The first one we call Live Connect, and it's a way for an IT technician to remotely access the endpoint behind the scenes, so they can be working on that device while the user continues to work and be productive, assuming that they can still do that. So the end user is working on that device, and meanwhile the technician is working behind the scenes and can do a lot of different functions on that device behind the scenes. The second approach is what we call remote control, and that gives the technician direct console access to that machine. And there are two ways to do that, either with a shared session where the technician is on the machine with the end user. So it's like they're sitting next to them in front of their computer and working through an issue with them, perhaps. And you could also do it as a private session where the technician takes control of the machine and is working on it by themselves. And the one thing I wanted to point out here on the remote control is that we have something that we call one-click secure access, where the technician can get access to that endpoint, that console access, and they don't need to remember or manage passwords or credentials to get on that device. VSA actually generates those credentials on the fly so that the tech can get admin level access to that endpoint without having to worry about passwords and that kind of thing. Ron, anything else that you wanted to add there?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that one-click access that you mentioned is huge, because when you have a remote workforce, depending on the time of the day that a technician or admin needs to do some type of work or maintenance to a system, there's going to be times where the user is not going to be at their laptop or their desktop at home. So in those situations, one-click access is invaluable, because you can still leverage that technology to instantaneously create a temporary admin account that'll grant you direct access into that system without the end user even needing to be in front of their desktop or laptop at that moment.
Right. Yeah, one other thing I wanted to point out here is that when you do have this remote access to the endpoint, as shown in the screenshot, you have a lot of visibility and control of that endpoint. So for example, you can see CPU and memory usage on the device. You can see processes that are running on the device. You could do file transfers. You can actually go in and edit registry keys. And you can even bring up the command prompt if you need to run a script on the command prompt, for example. So there's a lot of things that you have the power to do as a technician remoting into that device. Next thing that we wanted to cover in terms of the remote endpoint management aspect of these remote workers is being able to actually monitor employee activity on that endpoint. So this might be important for some organizations to make sure that people are staying productive and they're working from home. So you want to monitor their activity and make sure that they're getting a lot of work done in terms of that remote environment. And you can also track system uptime to make sure that the endpoints are staying up and running, again, for productivity purposes, make sure that everybody's got the tools that they need to be productive. And you can also message those end users. You may want to let them know that there's some particular task that you'd like them to perform. And so you can do real-time messaging through the endpoint management solution to all of your remote workers.
And what's powerful about all these data points that you're showing here, John, is that these can all be delivered via a report. So the employee activity monitoring, the system uptime, tracking the productivity, all of this can be generated in automated reports that you can have delivered to yourself or maybe department managers, etc., at whatever pre-selected time you've chosen. So if somebody needs to have this information in their email every evening at 5 p.m., no problem. You can set up the VSA to automatically generate this and deliver these reports to them.
So now we wanted to touch on the idea of giving remote users access to certain functionality in the endpoint management solution. So you can do things like define a role for a remote end user. And with that role, you could assign them the ability to use certain modules within VSA. And so, for example, you could have give them the ability to securely connect to a computer that's back at the office. So they're working from home, but they need to be able to get to some system in the office that couldn't leave the office for whatever reason, maybe for security reasons. And now they can use the endpoint management solution, VSA, to securely connect to that device and actually access files and transfer files from that machine back to their home office if needed, things like that. And you can do that securely with the idea that you can have automatic enforcement of two-factor authentication. So when they log into VSA, it uses two-factor authentication to secure that login process.
And John, this remote or worker connectivity can be managed and customized to a very granular level. For example, you have the ability with the VSA to restrict the login or remote control hours for an end user. So if you only want them to be able to access their work computers on the weekdays, but not the weekends, you can do that. All of those permission and customization settings are available right within the VSA.
Yeah, you can define the scope of what they're able to do and what they're able to see within the tool and really control that access, which is really important. Another end user self-service capability that you could offer to your remote users is to give them the ability to run scripts. So what we call agent procedures, you could actually have this set up in a very simple way so that if a user runs into a particular problem, maybe a performance issue on their laptop, then you could give them the ability to actually run a script to resolve that issue, maybe a computer cleanup script, for example. And the great thing about that is with that self-service capability, the user doesn't have to go to your help desk. They don't have to log a service ticket, reduce that service ticket volume and sort of offload your IT help desk and IT technician staff, because now the user could potentially resolve the issue themselves. And of course, if they can't resolve the issue themselves, then you want to be able to give them the ability to submit their own tickets and track the status of those tickets. And that leads into Dvorak's service desk solution, which we also offer and is integrated with VSA. So users could contact their help desk and the technician could create a service ticket in Dvorak. And from there, if the technician now needs to access that endpoint, right in the service ticket in Dvorak, they can click the Live Connect button and access that endpoint just like we talked about previously. So it's that remote management capability in VSA that you can get to with a click of a button in the service desk solution.
Yeah, and this is a huge time saver for admins and technicians alike. I call it, it minimizes or eliminates all that lost swivel chair time, swiveling from one monitor to the next, trying to get into one platform to the next, to read a ticket and then remote into the system. Instead, you do all of that from one single pane of glass.
Exactly, and really helps to reduce the amount of time it takes you to resolve issues. So you can resolve tickets faster and get the end user back up and running much more quickly. So VSA also integrates with our Unitrends solution, which is our backup and disaster recovery product. And we call that within VSA, it's called Kaseya Unified Backup, or KUB. And that gives you the ability to manage backups right in the VSA console. It gives you access to this dashboard that you're seeing here so that you have visibility into many different key performance indicators like RPO and RTO right in the VSA console. So you don't, again, just like Ron just said, you don't need to be swiveling to another solution on a different screen. You can, right in the same endpoint management console, manage your backups and keep track of what's going on there from a backup standpoint. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Ron, to get right into the live demo.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John. Now I'll share my screen out. Once I've been
I'm going to make you the presenter right now. So yes, there you go.
All right. Excellent. Okay. Okay, and everybody should be able to see my screen right now. So what we're looking at is the Kaseya Virtual System Administration Platform, or the VSA, as you'll hear me refer to it for short. So the VSA is an agent-based systems management platform. What that essentially means is that by deploying a Kaseya VSA agent onto any of your Windows, Linux, or Mac-based systems, you're going to be able to manage, monitor, configure, remote into, and report on those systems. Now, in talking about remote management capabilities, the VSA is really going to give you the ability to have full management and monitoring access to all of your systems, or all of your end user systems, whether they're directly located in the same office or, as times are right now, spread all across the world. So what you're looking at right now in front of you is just a simple, small example of the type of visibility that you're going to have into your systems, even though they may be spread across remotely. Things such as how many systems are online versus offline, information in regards to the patching health of your various systems, monitoring capabilities such as how many systems are running low on disk space, what are the top systems with the lowest amount of disk space, and also what systems are having any type of agent issues. All of this is able to be monitored on a single pane of glass, as you can see here, right from the VSA platform. Now, for IT admins and engineers, the VSA is going to make your life a lot easier because it is going to allow you to automate so many of the manual day-to-day management tasks that you have to do for your various end user systems. We touched a little bit on these automation capabilities and when John was talking about the ability to actually help configure end user systems that are right there in their living rooms via the Kaseya VSA, what we call agent procedures. Kaseya VSA has the ability to actually install and run these, what we refer to as agent procedures, which can help configure an end user system from top to bottom. So let's go back to that VPN use case. Right now, a lot of people are having to work from home, and a lot of these individuals may not be the most tech savvy. So in that situation, doing something like setting up a VPN could be kind of daunting to them. Well, what's powerful about the VSA platform is once you install a Kaseya agent onto that end user's laptop, instantly that agent can be built to have a policy that automatically runs a VPN agent procedure or VPN script, which will now automatically configure the VPN on that end user system so that they don't have to do any configuration. Once it's set up and going, you'll just instruct them where to click and the VPN will grant them, will begin working for them without any manual configuration on their part. Now, the VSA platform is also going to give you very powerful remote control access capability into any of your end user system, no matter where they are. all Kaseya needs in order to communicate to any system is an internet connection. All communication goes through one port, that's port 5721. So what that means is as long as the end user is online, you're going to be able to remotely assist them at any time. You're going to be able to do this by a built-in proprietary remote control tool we have called Live Connect. By clicking on the Live Connect icon right here, you're going to now fully remote directly into an end user system, but you're doing it from behind the scenes. So what that means is you're now inside of that end user system, and yet the end user has no idea that you're in there, meaning their productivity is never halted. They're able to continue working, doing whatever they need to do, while you as a technician or engineer from the back end can do whatever you need to do on the tech side. As you can see here from the Live Connect session, you're able to see from behind the scenes key metrics such as performance, processes running, who's logged in, networking info, and you have the ability to execute any script that you would like on this end user system with a simple click of a button. Now, if you would like to take over the desktop, you can do that as well. You just simply double click on the screenshot, and now you have full desktop control. Now, one thing to note is that we do support collaborative remote control efforts, meaning if you as a junior technician are having a little bit of issue resolving a customer's issue remotely, then you can actually have a senior tech come in, collaborate with you on the same remote control session, and you two can figure it out together. As you can see here, you can also set up notifications so that your end user will know when you've taken over their desktop. And from there, you have the ability to even record your remote control sessions so that for compliance or auditing reasons, all these sessions can be saved right to the VSA server for later reviewing purposes. Now, another thing to note when it comes to making an end user's life easier when they're having to work remotely, we give end users the ability to access a what's called self-service portal. Anytime you deploy an agent onto an end user system, they're going to see a little Kaseya icon right there on that system. From here, they can right click on that icon and access various capabilities, or they can actually just double click on the icon and it'll take them right to what you're looking at right in front of you. This right here is the end user self-service portal. Now from here, they'll have the ability to do multiple things, such as create and submit their own trouble ticket, or review what trouble tickets currently exist for their system. And also, most powerfully, you can even give your end users the ability from the comfort of their own couch to actually execute and run helpful, what we call agent procedure scripts. So what a lot of our engineers or admins rather do is they'll build out some simple yet very powerful and effective agent procedure scripts, and they'll label them in a way that would make sense to the end user. So maybe, for example, if end users are having issues with their systems running slow, the admin will build out an agent procedure script that will be titled speed my computer up. And then their description will say, click on this and run it if your system's running slow. And in the background, that script will do a bunch of things such as clean up temp files, etc., anything that can be slowing the computer down. Point is that you now take workload off of the internal help desk plate because you're giving end users the power to help auto resolve some of their own issues. Now, we've talked about how you can actually provide remote control assistance to your end users remotely, but let's look at it from the opposite standpoint. What if your end users now, because of COVID, are having to work from home, yet they still need to gain access back into their laptop or worktop back in the office? Well, the VSA can also help you there as well. So we can give, or you can actually give your end users the ability to leverage the VSA platform to gain remote control to their own office systems. Now, of course, I know what you're thinking. Why would you ever want to grant your end user access to the most powerful, tech tool, within the IT department, the VSA? Well, you can do that because we give you the ability to implement very restrictive, what we call user role and scope account access policies. So here under the Systems tab, you can actually go in and create very restricted role and scope access, meaning you can actually restrict not only what an end user can see when they access the VSA. So instead of seeing all these modules here, you can set it up to where the only thing they see is the remote control module. And then you can also restrict their scope, Meaning, instead of them being able to see every end user's office system when they remote in here, you only want them to be able to see the systems that directly pertain to them. So then from an end user standpoint, once they have these permissions set up on their account, I'm going to show you now what they would see from their end. So I've just changed my account permissions to the what we call remote control user settings. So now when a remote control user logs in, as you can see here, the modules that they have visibility into greatly restricted. Not only that, but now Anthony, who's just remoted into the VSA, can only see Anthony's systems. So the point is that now he can actually go in, access Live Connect or remote control, remote right into his system, and be able to work on his desktop from home or on his laptop from home, just as if he was in the office, all without giving him access to anything else. So now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to change my permissions back to normal admin level permissions. So another thing to note about the VSA platform is that it gives you a lot of power to perform what we call proactive management. So of course, the name of the game as an IT admin or an engineer is to spot out, catch, and resolve issues behind the scenes before they become productivity issues for the actual end user. So PSA has the power to do this for you, whether a system is located in a customer's living room or directly in the office. We have very powerful monitoring capabilities. And what's great about our monitoring capabilities is that each monitor has what we call auto resolution capabilities built into them. So for example, let's say you want to, even though your end user is working from home, you still want to keep track of key areas of their system, such as, is there any hardware changes? Do they have any patch alerts? Has their disk space run low? All of these plus thousands of other alert functions you'll have access to with the VSA. From the VSA, not only are you able to set the threshold for when an alert should be triggered, but also you're able to say, hey, if an end user system gets below 25% free disk space, I want the VSA to automatically execute these certain actions for that system. You can say, one, go ahead and create an alarm. This will give you a visual indicator that user 123 system is running low on disk space. Two, you can say create a ticket, and this will automatically create a service ticket right within your help desk. Three, you can have an email notification sent out so that you or whatever the whoever the admin is that's on call will be notified about this alert that was triggered. And four, and most powerfully, you can tell the VSA to automatically run an agent procedure action script in response to this triggered alert. So now from here, you can actually do a search for what particular script you wanted to run. The VSA comes with over 650 pre-built scripts that you can easily customize. And now you'll say, okay, let's see a good disk-related script. Okay, disk cleanup. So now you've just told the VSA, for any of my users working at home whose disk space is starting to get low, not only do I want to be notified about it via an alarm, not only do I want it documented via a ticket, but I also want the VSA to help resolve the issue by running disk cleanup. Once the VSA does that, and the disk cleanup script has completed, it will now rescan the system to see if that has improved the disk space. If it has, guess what? The VSA will automatically silence the alarm and will automatically close out the ticket so that now your entire issue for that system has been resolved and you as an admin or a tech never had to lift a single finger. So that's the power that the VSA provides when it comes to remote management. Not just remote monitoring, but full-fledged automatic problem remediation. Now, let's take it one step further. Let's actually say, well, what happens if end user is having issues, but you know what? They are working from home and guess what? Their system, it's down. They've turned it off. Well, the VSA will even provide you very powerful not just remote control, but also wake on LAN capabilities. So here under desktop management, you're going to have the ability to actually turn an end user system on remotely so that you can log in and be able to assist them. Also, going back to the remote control capabilities there, if you have an end user that is actually working from home, you're going to have the ability to actually transfer files, or not transfer files, but actually communicate with that end user via messaging. So here, right under the remote control tab, let's say you need to send that user some type of reminder saying, hey, don't forget to reboot your system tonight, or whatever it is you want to tell them. We have a built-in chat functionality that is going to enable you to do just that. Now, lastly, from a reporting standpoint, the VSA provides for you over 350 pre-built reports that you can access at any given time. These reports run a large gamut, so everything from inventory reports to software licensing reports, etc. But what I'm going to show you right now is one of the most powerful and also most popular reports called the Executive Summary Report. To run a report is very simple. You just hit Run Now. You can easily filter this report down to a certain type of system or a specific system. Point is once you set up those filters, you'll note how quickly this report runs on over 30 different systems in our environment. So in roughly 5 seconds, I just ran a full executive summary report that gives me a wonderful bird's eye view of how efficiently and securely my managed systems are running, my remotely managed systems are running. So I'm able to get details such as patching. Have all my systems been patched, or are some of them missing patching? Also, I'm able to get details into things such as disk space utilization, antivirus and anti-malware scans, machine uptime. The point is that all of these report metrics here are built into one summarized report that I can have run on an automated daily basis and delivered to my or whoever's email box that it needs to be delivered to, giving me full insight into how all of my remote worker systems are functioning day in and day out. Well, I think that's all the time we have for our demo today. So now, John, I'll go ahead and we'll pass control back over to you.
Okay, thanks, Ron. That was great.
No problem. Let me. Trying to figure out how to release this control here. Just a moment. Okay.
There you go. You got it.
All right. There we go.
Okay.
Did I pass that back yet, John?
I think so. Yep, I got it. And just had a quick last couple of slides before we get to the Q&A. So I would invite everybody to, excuse me, to contact your account manager to learn more about either the network detective solution that Mark spoke about, or the VSA endpoint management solution, and learn more about either or both of those products. And the next thing would be, let's go right into Q&A. So please use the WebEx Q&A function to ask any questions you might have.
Yes, perfect, John. So we do have a few questions already. And one of the questions that we have is, can users kick off their own backups? That's from Roger. I believe that's about VSA. So the question is, can users kick off their own backups?
So that would all depend on what level of permission or access that you've given them, once again, into the VSA platform. So while we do have built-in integrations for example, Unitrends and things of that nature, if you've granted them access to be able to access the Unitrends integration, then yes, technically they could go in and they could be able to kick off their own backups. But generally what we've seen is, instead of having an end user kick off their own backups, what's more preferred by admins is to have the backups controlled in a more automated manner by means of policies that are already preset up to run for that end user system. That way, the end user doesn't have to worry about remembering to back up their system every day. The VSA combined with Unitrends will run that automatically.
Okay, perfect. So the other question we have here is, do the users need to have admin level access to install the Kaseya agent?
Great question. So no, they do not need to have admin level access to install it. Now, with that being stated, if you want the VSA agent to be able to perform admin level functions though, and be able to do more than just simply monitor, then in that case, you would need to apply the admin level credentials to that agent, and you would do that from within the VSA.
Okay, perfect. Now we do have a question here about Network Detective. The question is, does Network Detective need VPN connection from home to LAN?
No, so if you are scanning a home PC or a corporate PC, it does not need to actually be connected at the time. No, so you could just RDP or some other way screen share, or provide a link for the user to run the scan, and they can then send the scan results. It's an encrypted zip file back to IT, who would then import all of the scan data from all the users and create the reports. For running on corporate networks, this would be done just typically over the LAN, regardless of how many different VPNs you have.
Okay, perfect. So the other question is, does VSA integrate with AD?
Yes, it does. So you actually have the ability to integrate with Active Directory from the standpoint of when you're performing what's called a network discovery. Meaning, if you're wanting to scan a particular network, you can actually scan multiple networks at once as long as they're under the same domain by leveraging Active Directory and LDAP.
Okay, and then the other question is cost per node on the network?
So the way that it's charged is, yes, it's charged by endpoint. So you're going to need a Kaseya license for agent license rather for every single endpoint. So if you're managing 100 systems, you'll need 100 agent licenses.
Perfect. Well, those are the questions that we have so far. We'll give it another minute. If you guys have any other questions, we are still here. No problem, Nikki. Thank you. Thanks for participating with us today. I wanted to go ahead and thank Mark, John, and Ron for the presentation. You guys did a great job. I know now we can see a lot of people are interested in this subject, and I'm glad we had all these questions. We don't have any other questions here, so I'm going to go ahead and oh, there's another question just popped up. We'll take this last one before we go. So the other question is this an appliance, cloud-based, or installation on a server?
So we have both for the VSA at least, we have both an on-premise edition as well as a cloud-based edition. They both feature the exact same functionality. Only difference is with cloud-based, we host it in our infrastructure for you. On-premise, you would host it on your infrastructure.
Perfect. Yeah, and we are going to send these slides to everybody that participated with us today and everybody that registered. And again, I just wanted to thank Mark Winter, John Emmett, and Ronald Gordon for the presentation, and thank everybody that was able to join us today. We'll see you guys the next time. Thank you, guys.